Hello, I'm Dr. Graham Pannell at Olsen Renewables. I lead up our grid connections work that's directly involved with the connections of all the projects, right from a new site opportunity right through operations and ultimate decommissioning. I look at all our energy regulation, policy and commercial strategy. Energy is a very heavily regulated industry, so being aware of the labyrinthine rules that govern the system, the markets, and certainly for me, how network companies work as regulated monopolies, what incentivizes them, how they charge for their networks. And to that end, I've been working closely with many of the major trade associations, RenewableUK, Scottish Renewables, Energy UK, and currently I'm chair of RenewableUK's Networks and Charging Working Group. Network charging. That's how all stakeholders of the electricity system pay for the grid. Those pylons and the cables that carry the electricity around the country. We have a method of charging out to users for use of the network. And it makes a lot of sense from first principles. But what we've ended up with lots of people fiddling with the rules, some of them with vested interests on burning certain types of naughty fuels, and some with genuine interest on just making the methodology better, we've ended up with this very difficult to move black box policy that has accidentally put us in a place where it's hampering our route to net zero. And I would highlight that there's a fantastic paper by Ridge, which RenewableUK published only a couple of weeks ago, which neatly frames this and shows the relative impact of these network charges that are a choice. That they're a policy lever. We have decided as a UK who's going to pay more, who's going to pay less. And what we've done is we now have a methodology that where across England, generators pay 50 pence for every megawatt hour on average, roughly, for access to the network. And all across Europe, our neighbouring interconnected countries, they pay on average just under about 50 pence for every megawatt hour they produce. Many of them zero. Germany is exactly zero. In Scotland, they pay £6.50 for that access at the minute on average. And in North Scotland, £10. In Scotland, on average, it's 16 times higher than elsewhere in England and Wales, and it's about 5 times more than they pay in Ireland, for example. It's telling investors who want to construct a new wind farm, don't come to Scotland is the windiest place in Europe, but that could be 40% of your entire OPEX of a new wind farm. It's saying, go build one in Germany or Holland and pay nothing to access the UK system. And that might not be bringing the least cost generation sources into the UK for the benefit of all consumers. Now, you've got to do this in an overall cost benefit because there's a reason those charges were set that way, and they're set to spend the least amount of money on grid. It's only that they've gone wrong over time. So the idea is you already have power flowing from top to bottom in the UK, generally. You have more generation in Scotland, typically, and it tends to flow down to more dominant areas of demand, Manchester, Birmingham, London. What network charging does, it says, it's not for the existing wires. The existing wires, okay, we've already bought those as a country. We just share out the cost of those to everybody, the ultimate users of electricity. Is to say, if you want to put a new thing, could be a wind farm, if you want to put a new thing in, we're going to create a signal. We're going to say, well, if you were to add more power from the north, so you have to add to the power flows further south, well, then the grid companies will have to build more grid, won't they? So you send this charge to say you're adding a new generator at the top, or we'd have to build new pylons, and you add in a cost to access the grid that's supposed to be cost reflective of what it would cost to add that new grid carrying capacity to get the power south, which I'm very sympathetic to in principle, but it's nothing like the reality. What we've seen is charges in Scotland, and I'll come back, this is that difficulty in changing regulation to match, because it's quite hard to suddenly flip this overnight. But in reality, charges in Scotland, say over a decade period for generators to access the transmission system, have gone up by about 250%. The companies that build wires, in real terms, their spend has dropped a few percent. So it's not actually reflective of what's happening. What we find actually happens when new generators are added in various parts of the country, either they're quite geographically dispersed, so you don't need, if you've got 1 megawatt up there, you don't need a whole megawatt of new capacity, you need 0.7 or 0.5 or something. We find the system operator is quite rightly using commercial solutions, flexibility solutions, commercial intertrips, active network management, employing the balancing mechanism, and using some dynamic flexibility in real time rather than build new grid. But even when new grid's needed, we're finding some old lines that we can upgrade. We're taking existing lines and upgrading those existing lines' capacity so they can carry a bit more, or we're upgrading substations to make them a bit more controllable. All these things are actually far, far less cost per unit than building a new tower line. So the cost is not actually reflective in Scotland what's going on. All it's doing currently is disincentivizing investment in renewables in Scotland. And every day it carries on until we change that, puts us a day further away from that path that gets the whole country to net zero at least cost. I'm really pleased to hear that only in the last couple of weeks, our regulator Ofgem acknowledge that this is a problem that needs to be fixed. And I'm looking forward to being there in the driving seat to help with the new rules that are fit for purpose, that get the whole country on a path to net zero at the least cost, with some reflective, appropriate signals that the whole of the UK can buy into to get us where we need to be.